You ever find yourself wondering why someone who craves your presence so deeply won't just reach out? It's a question that lingers, right? It's easy to assume that if they really wanted you, they make the move. They'd call, text, or make some kind of gesture, wouldn't they? But here's the thing. Sometimes it's not as simple as just wanting to be with someone. Sometimes it's fear. A fear so strong that it keeps them from acting on their deepest desires. Now, let me tell you about vulnerability. See, reaching out means laying your emotions on the line, and that's not something everyone can handle. I know that sounds like a simple thing, but let me break it down for you. When you open yourself up, you're exposed. You're showing parts of yourself that are raw, unfiltered, and maybe even fragile. And for a lot of people, that's terrifying. It's scary to give someone the chance to really see you, the good, the bad, and everything in between. Think about it. In any relationship, whether it's romantic, familial, or even friendships, we all want to be seen, understood, and loved for who we truly are. But the thought of doing that, that's where the trouble starts. What if you show them the real you and they don't feel the same way? What if they look at you differently once they know how vulnerable you truly are? The truth is, some people are so afraid of rejection that they'd rather hold back than risk the pain of being turned away. So they keep their feelings inside, locked away, and build walls around their hearts to protect themselves. I don't want you to think that these people are cold or uncaring, though. Quite the opposite. The fact that they crave you so deeply means there's something real, something raw beneath the surface. They feel a connection, but they can't bring themselves to break through their own defenses because at the end of the day, opening up is hard and it requires trust. Trust that the other person will understand. Trust that the other person won't hurt you when you let them in. And that trust is something many people struggle with. Now, don't get it twisted. This fear doesn't come from a place of apathy. This kind of fear comes from a place of caring too much. When someone wants you that badly, it's not that they don't care enough to reach out. It's that they care so deeply, they're terrified of what could happen next. It's like standing on the edge of something, a cliff, a ledge. You can see what lies ahead, but that leap is terrifying. It's the unknown. You can't predict how it'll turn out. And some people, well, they just freeze at the thought. Think about it for a second. When you're vulnerable, you're not just showing your heart. You're showing your fears, your flaws, and your insecurities. You're giving someone the power to hurt you. And that's where the hesitation comes in. It's not that they don't want to reach out. They crave you deeply, more than you might even realize. It's that they're afraid of what might happen if they do. They're scared of being rejected, judged, or worse, ignored. The idea of putting themselves out there and having it fall apart is just too much for them to bear. And let's not forget about past wounds. When someone has been hurt before, it's hard to be open. I'm talking about real, deep, emotional scars. Maybe they've given their heart to someone who didn't appreciate it. Or maybe they've been vulnerable in the past and had it thrown back in their face. That kind of hurt doesn't just disappear. It stays with you. It shapes the way you interact with the world and the way you love. If someone has been burned before, they may be terrified of walking down that same painful road again. So instead of reaching out, they hold back, keeping their distance to protect themselves from getting hurt again. You see, it's not about a lack of desire or affection. It's not about whether they want to connect with you. It's about the walls they've built around themselves, walls that have been reinforced by fear and past experiences. And here's the thing, as much as you might want them to reach out, as much as you wish they'd make the first move, the truth is they have to be ready. They have to be willing to break down their own barriers, to take that risk of being vulnerable. And that's something they can't be forced into. It's something they have to come to on their own. So when you're sitting there wondering why they won't reach out, even though you know how deeply they crave you, remember this: it's not about you, it's about them and the fears they're carrying. It's about the battle they face within themselves, the struggle to be vulnerable in a world that often makes it feel unsafe to do so. And in that space, all you can do is be patient, understanding, and give them the time they need to find the courage to reach out on their own. Because sometimes even the deepest craving needs the right moment to be expressed. And when that moment comes, it'll be real, it'll be raw, and it'll be worth it. You ever notice how sometimes when we really crave someone, we end up holding back, almost as if we're waiting for them to make the first move? It's like there's this invisible barrier, a wall we build without even realizing it. It's not because we don't care, quite the opposite. It's because we care so much that we're afraid. We're afraid of looking weak, of being vulnerable, of losing control of a situation that means so much to us. That's the thing about pride, though. It's a sneaky thing. It's the voice in your head that tells you, don't call first. It's the voice that says, don't let them see how much you want this. And before you know it, you're paralyzed by your own need to protect yourself from what could go wrong. See, pride doesn't always look the way we think it does. It's not always about being overly arrogant or acting like you don't care. No, pride can be quiet, subtle, and sometimes even noble. It's about not wanting to feel like you're giving too much of yourself away. You've got to keep some distance, right? You can't let them see all of you, because if they see everything, if they know how much you crave them, it gives them power over you. And power, that's something we don't always want to give up. We want to control the situation. We want to feel like we're in charge of the dynamic. And when you reach out, when you make that first move, you're putting a little piece of that control in their hands. So you hold back. And that's what makes pride so tricky. It's a defense mechanism, something that keeps you safe, or at least it tries to. Because if you're not the one to make the move, if you're not the one to reach out first, then you're not putting yourself in a position to be hurt. The other person is the one who has to show their hand. They have to take that risk. And so we wait. We wait for them to come to us, because somehow it feels like that keeps us in control. But what we don't realize is that by holding back, by letting pride dictate our actions, we might be missing out on something real, something deep. Now, here's the thing about pride. It's a double-edged sword. It makes us hold back from reaching out, from making the connection we crave, but it also plays with our own emotions. We tell ourselves, if they really wanted to talk to me, if they really cared, they would be the ones to make the first move. And maybe, just maybe, they feel the same way. You see, this whole thing is built on assumptions. We sit there thinking the other person should act first because we're not supposed to lower ourselves. We're not supposed to be the ones who seem too eager. It's a game we play with ourselves. But the truth is, if both sides are waiting for the other to move, no one moves at all. And the craving, the desire, it remains unspoken. That's the trouble with pride. It keeps you at a distance from the very thing you want. You want the connection, you crave it, but pride says, wait a minute, don't give too much, don't let them see how much you care. So instead of reaching out, you hold back, hoping they'll sense your longing and take the initiative. It's almost like hoping they'll somehow read your mind and know exactly how deep your feelings go. But here's the harsh reality. People can't always read minds. They don't know what you're thinking. And even if they did, they might be feeling the same way. They might be waiting for you to make the first move. And the longer this game of pride goes on, the more time you lose. What's fascinating about pride, though, is that it's not just about protecting ourselves from the possibility of rejection. It's also about the fear of losing control in the relationship. We all want to feel like we're steering the ship, right? We want to feel like we're in charge, that we're not at the mercy of someone else's decisions or feelings. But when we put ourselves out there, When we reach out, we give away a little bit of that control. It's a vulnerable thing to do. And vulnerability, as we know, can be a scary place to be. But let's get real for a second. If you really crave a connection, if you really want to see where this could go, you got to let go of that pride. It's not helping you, it's holding you back. The truth is, love and desire don't play by the rules of control and pride. If you're waiting for the other person to take the first step, to make the first move, you're operating in a mindset that's keeping you from what you really want. It's like standing at the edge of a door and waiting for it to open on its own when all you have to do is turn the handle and walk through. But pride keeps you from doing that. It tells you that you shouldn't have to open the door, that it should just swing open by itself. So yeah, pride can keep us from reaching out, from taking the initiative, from making the first move. But it also keeps us stuck in our own heads, caught in a loop of hesitation and fear. And that's a loop that can leave you waiting for something that might never happen. Because in the end, if both sides are caught in their pride, no one's going to reach out. And the craving, the connection, it stays right where it is, unspoken, unresolved. And sometimes, just sometimes, you've got to let go of pride and take the leap. You've got to make the first move, because if you don't, you might miss out on something real. Let me ask you something. How many times have you found yourself standing there just staring at your phone thinking, should I reach out? You're not sure, right? You don't want to make a mistake. You don't want to say the wrong thing, come on too strong, or make it awkward. And so you overthink it, and you think, and you think, and you think some more. And the more you think, the more you get caught in this cycle of self-doubt. You start questioning everything. Did I do something wrong? Did I misread the signs? What if they don't feel the same way? What if you're just imagining things? And just like that, what could have been a simple, straightforward action, reaching out, making the first move, becomes a mountain of doubt. You end up paralyzed. And nothing happens. But see, that's the thing about uncertainty. It's the enemy of action. When you're uncertain, when you doubt yourself, you hesitate, you question your own feelings, and you end up second guessing everything. It's like being stuck in quicksand. The more you struggle, the deeper you sink. You tell yourself, maybe I'm just being dramatic. Maybe it's not as big of a deal as I'm making it out to be. And before you know it, what could have been a simple conversation has turned into a massive emotional hurdle. Now, let me paint a picture for you. You're thinking about texting them. You want to reach out, but then right before your fingers hit the keys, you freeze. The uncertainty floods in. What if they're busy? What if they don't want to talk? What if they're seeing someone else? What if you're just annoying them by reaching out? And with each what if, you build more walls around yourself. Your mind starts spinning. You analyze every possible outcome. You wonder how they'll respond, how they might feel. It's like playing a game of mental chess, but you're not even sure what the rules are. And you know what happens next, right? You put the phone down, maybe you draft a message and delete it. Maybe you just decide it's better not to send anything at all. After all, who wants to risk looking foolish or getting caught up in something that might not go anywhere? So you hold back. You tell yourself that it's better to wait, to give them time, or that maybe it's just not meant to be. And just like that, a small moment of uncertainty keeps you from taking any action at all. But here's the real kicker. That doubt you're feeling isn't just about the other person, it's about you. It's about your own fears and insecurities. You're questioning whether you're worthy of their time, whether your feelings are valid, or whether you're even right in how you feel. And that's what gets you stuck. That self-doubt makes you unsure of the whole situation. It's almost as if you're telling yourself, I'm not sure if they really like me, so maybe I'm just not going to risk putting myself out there. You're projecting your own uncertainties onto the situation, and that keeps you from acting even when you really want to. But here's the truth. Uncertainty is natural. It's part of being human. We all face moments where we feel unsure about what to do next, But let me tell you, one of the most powerful things you can do in those moments is trust yourself. Trust that the feelings you have are valid. Trust that if you want to reach out, it's okay to do so. Trust that there's no shame in being open and vulnerable. Sometimes the best thing you can do is let go of the need for perfection and just take a step forward, even if it's uncertain. Think about it for a second. The very act of reaching out, of taking that first step, requires trust. Trust that you're not making a mistake. Trust that your feelings are worth sharing. And when you do that, when you stop overthinking and just act, you break free from that cycle of doubt. You open up the possibility of something real, something genuine. You let go of the what ifs and embrace the moment. It's like taking a leap of faith. You don't know exactly how it's going to turn out, but you trust that it's worth trying. And sometimes just trying is enough. I get it. It's hard. The fear of rejection, the fear of putting yourself out there and not getting the response you want is real. But here's what you need to remember. The worst thing that can happen isn't reaching out and getting no response. The worst thing that can happen is never reaching out at all. The worst thing that can happen is letting uncertainty control your actions, letting your doubts keep you stuck in limbo. Because when you do that, you miss out on the opportunity to find out what could be. We spend so much time worrying about what could go wrong that we forget to consider what could go right. What if they feel the same way? What if reaching out opens up a whole new door, a door you never even thought to walk through? What if that one simple act of bravery, of trusting your own instincts, changes everything? So the next time you find yourself stuck in a spiral of self-doubt, remember this. The uncertainty is always going to be there. The questions will always be there, but what matters is how you respond to them. You can let them paralyze you, or you can let them be a signal to move forward. Take a breath, trust yourself, and take that first step. Because in the end, it's the courage to move past the doubt that will bring you closer to what you really want. You ever find yourself in a situation where you know you should reach out to someone, but instead you start overthinking it to the point where you don't do anything at all? You've probably been there, right? You keep running the same scenario in your head over and over, imagining all the ways it could go, trying to figure out the right words to say, the right timing to pick, the right tone to strike. And before you know it, you're caught in this loop. You want to reach out, you crave that connection, but instead of making a move, you're stuck in this cycle of second guessing everything. It's like a mental gridlock and nothing moves forward. That's the thing about overthinking. It's one of the most effective ways to keep yourself from taking any real action. You can get so caught up in the details, the what ifs, the potential outcomes, the fear of saying the wrong thing, that you freeze. And the more you think, the less you actually do. It's almost like you're trying to predict the future, like you're trying to control every outcome before it even happens. But the truth is, no matter how much you think about it, you can't control how the other person will react. You can't predict their response. All you can do is take a step forward and trust that whatever happens next, it's a step worth taking. But that's where overthinking gets dangerous. It tricks you into believing that if you just keep thinking, you'll somehow find the perfect solution, the perfect words to say, the perfect timing to make your move. You start to convince yourself that you have to figure everything out before you can reach out. And that's when it gets tricky. Because the truth is, there's no such thing as the perfect moment. There's no such thing as the perfect words. You'll never have every detail figured out. You'll never be able to predict exactly how the other person will feel or what they'll do. So you end up waiting for a moment that doesn't exist. Here's the thing, by overthinking, you're creating barriers for yourself. You're building up walls of doubt, fear, and hesitation that prevent you from acting on your feelings. You're holding yourself back from doing what you really want because you're so consumed with making sure everything is perfect. But the reality is, when it comes to connection, perfection is overrated. It's the imperfections that make a relationship real. It's the awkward moments, the unexpected pauses, the miscommunications. Those are the things that bring us closer. But overthinking, that'll have you second guessing everything and turning a simple act of reaching out into a monumental task. And what happens then? You end up stuck in a state of inaction. You might even tell yourself, maybe I'll do it tomorrow. Maybe I'll send that text tomorrow or make that call tomorrow. And the days pass, the moments slip by, and you never actually take the first step. You keep putting it off because in your mind, you haven't figured out the perfect way to do it yet. And before you know it, you've wasted all this time thinking about it and wondering what could have been instead of just doing something about it. What we often forget when we're caught in this cycle of overthinking is that we're not in control of every outcome. There's no way to know for sure how things are going to play out. All you can do is take a leap of faith and reach out. You have to trust that you've got enough of the right intention behind your actions. You can't control how they'll respond, but you can control whether you take the first step or not. And when you keep overthinking, you're robbing yourself of that power. You're letting doubt and fear take the wheel instead of trusting your own instincts. The truth is, the more you overthink, the more you trap yourself in your own head. You start imagining all these worst case scenarios. What if they don't care? What if they think I'm too forward? What if they don't respond at all? And those questions, they create more confusion, more doubt, more hesitation. But here's the thing, all those what ifs don't mean a thing if you don't give it a chance. You could sit there all day imagining the worst, but that's not living, that's just staying stuck in your head. Instead of overthinking the situation, why not just take the plunge? Send the message, make the call, reach out. It might not be perfect. It might not be exactly how you envisioned it, but I promise you it's better than sitting on the sidelines wondering what could have been. Sometimes the best way to deal with uncertainty is to stop thinking about it and just do something. Trust that it'll unfold however it's supposed to. Because in the end, the only thing you're really guaranteed is the chance to take action. And no matter how imperfect or uncertain that action might feel, it's always better than doing nothing at all. It's funny how often we find ourselves stuck in that mental loop, overthinking every little detail, every possible outcome until we paralyze ourselves with doubt. We make it harder than it needs to be. But when you let go of that need for perfection, when you stop worrying about how things should go and just act, you open yourself up to real, authentic possibilities. You stop waiting for the perfect moment because you realize there's no such thing. The only moment that matters is the one right in front of you. So when you find yourself stuck in the cycle of overthinking, ask yourself, what are you really afraid of? What's holding you back from taking that first step? Because overthinking, as powerful as it feels in the moment, is just a way of keeping yourself trapped. And you're worth more than that. You deserve the chance to move forward, to take that step and see where it leads. Don't let your mind talk you out of it. Don't let hesitation keep you from what you really want. Take the leap, the rest will follow. Now let's talk about fear. I know you felt it before, that pit in your stomach, that voice inside your head telling you that reaching out might not be worth it. The fear of being vulnerable, the fear of putting yourself out there and not getting what you hope for in return, fear of rejection, fear of getting hurt. It's a powerful thing, isn't it? It holds us back. It makes us question our decisions and our worth. And when you're in a situation where you crave someone, but they're not reaching out, that fear can become even stronger. You start to wonder if it's worth the risk. You start to doubt if you should even make the first move, because what if you're setting yourself up for disappointment? That's the thing about fear. It thrives on uncertainty. It feeds on those what ifs that we're constantly playing over in our minds. What if they don't feel the same way? What if they don't respond? What if I look too eager? And with every question, the fear grows. It's like standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing you want to jump, but being terrified of the fall. You're paralyzed, stuck in the moment of hesitation, trying to convince yourself that maybe it's better to just wait, to stay on solid ground where it feels safe. But here's the thing: safety doesn't lead to growth, it doesn't lead to connection. Sometimes you've got to face that fear head on and take the leap. The fear of rejection, in particular, is a real beast. It can make you feel small, like you're not enough, like you're somehow undeserving of the connection you crave. It's an insecurity we all feel at some point, and it can make you question every action you take. What if they don't want to talk to you? What if they've moved on? What if you've been reading the signs all wrong? These questions can overwhelm you, and suddenly the desire to reach out starts to feel like a risk you don't want to take. You talk yourself out of it because that fear feels so much louder than anything else. But here's where the shift happens. That fear, as loud as it may seem, is actually a signal. It's a signal that you're close to something important, something real. When fear shows up, it means you're stepping outside of your comfort zone. It means you're about to do something that matters. Think about it. Every time you've had to face a fear, you've come out stronger on the other side. Every time you've pushed through a moment of hesitation, you've learned something new about yourself, about the world around you. So when it comes to relationships, fear is no different. It's not there to stop you. It's there to challenge you, to help you grow. It's saying, are you brave enough to put yourself out there? Are you willing to face this uncertainty? And what's on the other side of that fear? The potential for something real. You see, when you give in to fear, when you let it dictate your actions, you limit your chances. You end up sitting in a room of what ifs instead of stepping into a room full of possibilities. But if you face that fear, if you step into it instead of backing away, you open up a whole new world. You give yourself the chance to find out what could be. You give yourself the chance to connect, to be seen, to experience the vulnerability that makes relationships meaningful. But I get it. It's not easy. Fear has a way of making everything feel more complicated than it needs to be. You start thinking about all the things that could go wrong, and it clouds your judgment. You're afraid of rejection, of being too much, of looking foolish. But here's a truth that I need you to hear. You're not foolish for reaching out. You're not too much for wanting connection. If anything, the people who really matter will appreciate your bravery, your willingness to be open, to show up as yourself. That's the kind of vulnerability that makes relationships worth having. When you let go of the fear of being hurt and embrace the possibility of something real. And let's talk about something else here, the fear of being vulnerable. You know, vulnerability is not a sign of weakness. It's the opposite. It's a sign of strength. It's the courage to show your true self, to let someone see you for who you really are, with all your flaws, your hopes, your fears. It's terrifying, no doubt. It opens you up to the possibility of rejection, to the possibility that someone might not feel the same way. But here's the thing, if you never take that risk, if you never put yourself out there, you'll never know the depth of connection that's possible. You'll never know how strong your bond could be with someone because you were too afraid to let them see who you really are. The fear you're feeling is just part of the process. It's a natural response to the unknown. It's part of what makes us human. But it's not something that should hold you back. Fear will always be there. It's a constant companion, but it doesn't have to be the one driving the car. You can choose to move past it, to face it head on and take the steps that matter to you. It's when you're willing to feel that fear and act anyway that you unlock the potential for something truly amazing. So the next time you feel that fear creeping in, when you wonder whether you should reach out, ask yourself this: what am I really afraid of? And then whatever the answer is, take that first step, because on the other side of that fear is the opportunity to create something real, something meaningful. You don't want to look back one day and wonder what could have been. You want to look back and know that you faced your fear and made the move anyway. That's where the real connection begins. Now, let's talk about timing. Timing is one of those things that gets under our skin. You probably found yourself thinking, should I reach out now or is it too soon? Or maybe I should wait for the right moment. You're caught between feeling like you should take action and wondering if you're jumping the gun. The question becomes, is there such a thing as the right time? When is it too early and when is it too late? Timing has a funny way of playing tricks on us, doesn't it? We're constantly trying to figure it out, waiting for the stars to align, the universe to give us some sort of sign that now is the moment to act. But here's the thing, if we wait too long for that perfect moment, we might miss out on something that could have been great. We often overcomplicate timing. We overthink it, waiting for some kind of perfect moment to reach out. And in doing so, we end up frozen, paralyzed by the fear that we might do it too early or too late. You've probably been there, standing in the middle of that tension, thinking you're supposed to wait for the exact right opportunity. The problem with that is, most of the time, there is no such thing as the perfect moment. Timing doesn't always work out the way we think it should. Sometimes waiting for that perfect time can just keep you stuck in limbo. So the question becomes, what do you do in that space of uncertainty? How do you navigate the pressure of wondering if it's too soon, too late, or just right? Let me tell you something. The truth is, waiting for that perfect moment can often keep us from taking any action at all. Think about it. When you're waiting for the right time to reach out, what's really happening? You're just putting it off. You're telling yourself that it's not time yet, that you do it later. And you know what that later turns into? It turns into nothing. It's a missed opportunity, a moment that passes by, never to be reclaimed. So you're left thinking about what could have been. And here's the kicker. If you had just taken that step in the first place, you wouldn't be left wondering at all. Now, I'm not saying you should rush into things. I'm not saying to act impulsively or without thought. What I am saying is that if you're constantly waiting for the right time, you might find yourself stuck in a never-ending cycle of hesitation. We all know that life doesn't always give us the perfect conditions to act. And here's the thing. If you wait for everything to line up just right, you're going to be waiting forever. The truth is, action rarely feels perfect, but that's the beauty of it. When you take a step despite not knowing every little detail, you open yourself up to a world of possibilities. Here's the reality. Timing isn't something you can control. No matter how much you plan or how much you wait, you can't dictate when things will unfold. Life doesn't work on a strict timeline, and relationships are no different. Sometimes the best move is to make the move when you feel that pull, when your heart tells you that now's the time to reach out. It might not feel perfect and it might not look like what you imagine, but that's okay. The key is to trust yourself, trust your instincts, trust that you know what's best for you in the moment. When you wait for the perfect moment, you're letting time dictate your actions. You're letting it control when and how you engage with the people you care about. But you don't need to be a slave to time. Instead, you can choose to take action based on what feels right to you. It's like that old saying, don't wait for the storm to pass, learn to dance in the rain. Sometimes you've got to step into the unknown. You've got to trust that your timing will work out, even if it doesn't follow a specific plan. You've got to remember, too, that the people you're waiting to reach out to are living their lives just like you. They're not waiting for a perfect moment either. They're navigating their own uncertainties, their own fears, and their own hesitations. So when you overthink timing, you forget that the other person is probably just as unsure as you are. The right moment might never come. And the longer you wait, the more distance grows between you. At some point, you got to ask yourself, what's more important? Is it the fear of doing it too early or the regret of not doing it at all? Is it the hesitation or the possibility of something real? Because in the end, we all get caught up in the idea that there's a perfect time, a magical moment where everything aligns. But the truth is, the right moment is the one you create by acting. Every action you take creates its own timing. Every time you reach out, you make that moment the right one. So stop waiting, stop letting timing hold you back. If you feel the need to reach out to make that connection, then do it. You might not get a perfect response and things might not unfold exactly how you pictured them, but you'll never know what could have been if you keep waiting for everything to be perfect. The reality is, you can't predict the future. You can't control what someone else is going to say or do, but you can control whether or not you act. And in the grand scheme of things, action is always more powerful than inaction. The perfect time might never come, but you can create your own moment by taking that first step, no matter how imperfect it feels. So go ahead, take the leap. Don't wait for the stars to align. Create your own timing. The rest will follow.